Okay, so maybe some teachers don't really like planning, but because they think that it's more for administrative stuff, some for office stuff, rather than that help for themselves, right? Remember, a lesson planning, yes, it's a document, as we were talking before. Yeah, I we all are agree that it's a document. Okay, but it's also a document that will help you sooner or later to have an excellent class, right? To improve your classes, to do your best. Okay, so today we're going to stop finishing talking about planning, and we're going to start with resources. Okay, Francisco, today we're going to finish with planning and then start with resources. Resources are very simple, very easy, and we're going to try to start them as soon as possible. Okay, so I just want to remind you, this is module 2 part 1, lesson planning and use of resources for language teaching. Okay, so let's begin. First of all, this is the last thing, and we need to talk about assessment this time. I remember that you couldn't attend the assessment class. I remember that you had a situation, but don't worry. Okay, we're going to have like kind of a review about assessment today. Okay, we have objective and subjective assessment, for example, formal, informal, and so on. Okay, but don't worry. We're gonna look at this today. So, the topic for now it's called choosing assessment activities. Okay, what is this? Like, you really can choose activities that can be evaluated somehow, right? Okay, don't try to have activities that cannot be evaluated. We're going to talk about that later on. Okay, but first let's define assessment. Assessment means collecting information about learners' performance, progress, or attitudes in order to make judgments about their learning. We may choose to assess formally, for example, through tests and examinations, or informally, just monitoring, observing, etc. Okay, Francisco? So remember that in assessment, we need, it's basically to check the progress of our students, right? You can mark them with a with a 10, or you just can say like, hey, well done, nice job, improve this, but you did it very good. You know what I mean? So that's basically when we talk about assessment. Okay. So I was telling you about formal and informal assessment. Okay, so I made this chart in which we have all the difference between these two both. Okay, for example, for formal assessment, we have different assessment tasks. Okay, for formal assessment, the most common ones are tests and examinations. No more. Okay, these are the most common ones. Okay, remember, if you want to know if your students learn or not, it's better with a test or an exam. Okay, informal assessment. What is this? Well, basically normal classroom teaching and learning activities or homework tasks. What is this? Like, for example, just like you're going to have a homework and I'm going to sign it, or I'm going to put my seal on it. Okay, or I'm going to check the homework. You just tick the student's homework. You know what I mean? Like, this is very informal. Obviously, it's part of the evaluation, but it's not as formal as a test like this one, right? Maybe, Francisco, what I do in the classes is an informal assessment because you do your extra activities, but I just said, well done. I don't give you any number. I don't give you any percentage. I'm just giving you like, well done, good job, etc. And informal assessment is a real test. Okay, for this preparation, I have like kind of an informal assessment, but in the real test, you're going to have a very formal assessment. Okay, what is the purpose of formal assessment? Well, it's basically to assess overall language ability, proficiency test, for example, to assess learning at the end of a course, achievement test. I was explaining the other class about all these tests. I know that you saw it, right, Francisco? Did you see the video of this class? If you didn't, well, do it, please, because you might have questions about this. Okay, so did you look at it, please, Francisco? Can you answer? Be honest. All right. Okay. So please, I'm having like a kind of a very, very short review, but try to watch the video. Okay, let's continue. To assess learning at the end of a path of a course, progress test, and to decide if learners can continue to the next level. Another examples are placement tests, diagnostic tests, etc. So there are many, many purposes for tests. Okay, to check their ability, to check their progress, to see their level, etc. Okay, now informal assessment, feedback for the teachers. Okay, so this is a good kind of a way that we can assess ourselves, and at the same time we can give feedback to the students, like saying, hey, well done, but don't forget to use the s in third person, for example. So somehow you are assessing, but at the same time you are telling the students about this feedback to help the teacher improve procedures or choose different materials or activities for future lessons. Okay, this can also help me to choose materials. Okay, what I'm going to be evaluating is this, and this. So I'm going to go for materials in order to see if those materials can help me to assess the students. Feedback for learners about what they can do and what they still need to work on is the same. Okay, so in informal assessment, as it is very free, as it is very open, it can help us as teachers and they as students. Mhm. Okay, how do you really mark it? In formal assessments, you normally mark them with learners receive grades, for example. A percentage, 80%, 60%, 20%, or a letter as in the United States. A for the highest level, for the highest students, B, C, D until F, right? Which is basically fail. Or for example, just the words pass and fail, and that's it. In Mexico, we have a system of numbers. You know that we normally mark assessment with numbers. Okay, 10, 9, 9.5, 8.5, etc. Informal assessment. The teacher keeps records of progress but does not give grades. Okay, it's normal like to have in your checking list, like, okay, Francisco, he did this homework, he did the other homework, he didn't do this homework, the next one, yes, he did. So you're just marking the progress. But in reality, you are not giving them a grade. Uh-huh. Or for example, that can be also for the same students. Learner keeps records of progress, and this is more common to be named as portfolio. Have you ever heard about portfolio, Francisco? What do you know about portfolio? Okay, yes, it's a resource for demonstrating the progress of learning. So they have like kind of it can be like, I don't know, like a booklet in which the students can start keeping all the pieces of paper, all the like articles, essays that they are doing, etc. Okay, very good, Francisco. Do you normally apply this portfolio in your classes or not? It for just like only exams, only presentations, but no evidences. Normally not, right? Maybe because they are children. I do have to provide this portfolio. Okay, now let's continue. Okay, this is the most important part, Francisco. I hope it is clear in your cell phone. Okay, so if you have any question, please let me know. Example of assessment activities. Okay, this is basically how we can assess activities. Okay, we have here the assessment activity, and here we have the comments from teachers. Okay, comments about what is good, what is not good, like the way you can do it, the way you can manage this evaluation and everything. Okay, so the first, for example, we have closed test with a Z. Students students complete a text with every ninth, okay, word blanket out. So basically that's you have some spaces in a test and you need in a text and you need to complete it with the correct word, and that's a closed test. Okay, what are the comments? Test reading comprehension and knowledge of grammar and lexis may be difficult to mark as gap may allow more than one answer. Okay, so this reminds me, for example, the FC test, in which you have a, like kind of a test or the pet, and you have to put the correct word in order to have a sentence with a correct meaning. So this is basically the closed test. Okay, it is kind of difficult, especially if the space you can have many answers from that space. Uh-huh. But this is basically this closed test. You can use it to check comprehension and knowledge of grammar and lexis. Okay, so three things: comprehension, because they need to read; knowledge of grammar, because they need to know the structure of the sentences; and the lexis, because obviously they need to know the vocabulary in order to fit. Okay, so Francisco, closed test. No problems with closed test, because you might be asked this in the real exam. Not really. No. Okay, now let's continue with gap fill. Okay, what is the difference between the closed test and the gap fill? I'm going to explain you. A student complete a text with selected work blanket out. So in this case, you have options. Closed test, you don't have options, you have options. Remember when we were talking about free and freer activities? So this is totally a non-free activity because you have the options, okay? So what are the comments? What does this really evaluate? Test knowledge of grammar and or lexis. So we have only two things, grammar and lexis. No comprehension really. The teacher has control over which item are tested. Marking can be difficult as gaps may allow more than one answer. Yes, in the same one, for example, in a song, you can confuse your students. You can give them like, this word might be written twice, but it's just written once. So in this case, you can confuse your students, but obviously, as it says, it is controlled. It's a more controlled activity than this one. In this one, you don't exactly have to have a control. Not exactly. I mean, all of those activities, you know that you need a control, but not exactly in the closed test. But in gap field, yes. Okay. The next one, recording jumbled sentences. What is this? Test grammatical knowledge, cohesion, and awareness of collocation. Objective task, type easy to mark. Okay, what is jumbled sentence? Well, basically, to have sentences and put them in the correct order. Okay, that's jumble, like to put the correct order according to the situation. Okay, what can you evaluate in this case? You can have test grammatical knowledge. Okay, in the test, you can write the sentences and you make your students to put them in the correct order. Cohesion and an awareness of collocation. So what is this? Well, basically that the sentences are correct in every single aspect, and awareness of collocation. What is this? Well, that they need to put it in the correct order, and they need to know about all these chunks and special words. And objective task type easy to mark. It's very easy because you have you know what you are be testing because you have the order. Uh-huh. Then we have sentence transformation. Complete a sentence so that it means exactly the same. So this is very similar to TK to PEG to FC, right? You have a sentence and below you have another sentence, but you need to give extra words or some words differently, but they need to have the same meaning. Okay, so for example, in this case, you test knowledge of grammatical structures most of the times and the relationship between them. So all the grammatical structures and patterns and everything. Proofreading. Students correct mistakes in a text. This is very common in the TOEFL. I don't know if you have applied for the TOEFL test, Francisco, but you know that there is a one part in which you need to see what is the mistake. You don't correct it exactly, but you need to see what the mistake is. Uh-huh. So, for example, in this case, this assesses learners' awareness of error. Okay, so now we're touching the part of error, a highly realistic task. We should encourage learners to check their own writing. We can make it easier by indicating where there are errors or more difficult by asking learners to find the errors themselves and then correct them. Okay, so this is especially for writing activities, right? If you ask your students to make a composition and you say, okay, you made mistakes, check them out. But you don't give them options, or you just said, oh, this is wrong, check it out. Mhm. Now, multiple choice questions. Okay, what this multiple choice question can test? They can test the knowledge of grammar, lexis, or other features of language and comprehension of written or spoken text. So this is very good, right? Because in multiple choice questions, you can have, multiple choice like A, B, C, and D, like in the TKT test. It's good because you can evaluate whatever you want. That's why many exams like Exani, like TKT, have this kind of assessment activity. One is easier, and on the other hand, it is uh it is good, right? So an objective assessment type with single correct answer and therefore easy to mark. That's what I tell you, like it's very easy to mark because A, the answer number one is A, number two is C, and you just mark it. Hmm? True, false, or don't know questions. Test comprehension of written or spoken text. We're talking about comprehension. An objective assessment type with single answers and therefore easy to mark because you only have true, false, or don't know. Okay? Adding the no options make it more challenging as learners search a written text theory, more thoroughly or listen to a spoken text more attentively. Okay, so it's a good idea, Francisco, if you apply this in your activities or in the exams, try to add don't know because then that will keep more attention from the students. And finally, information transfer from the text to a diagram or a table, like having some information and transfer that information into another stuff. So in this case, you can test comprehension of written and spoken text. Easy to construct, but maybe difficult to mark, as it may allow a range of possible answers. So it is good somehow, but it's also a little bit complicated to evaluate. Because imagine that I ask my students, okay, let's make a diagram of wild animals. Okay. And you say, I don't know, maybe you divide it into wild animals in the jungle, wild animals in the polar stuff and so on. And they can write whatever animal they have in mind. Okay? Maybe they will say, for me, a wild animal is a koala. And you say, no, you're kidding. A koala is not a wild animal. But teacher, it lives in the jungle and it's considered one wild animal indeed. For you, maybe it is not. Maybe it is so sweet, but it is a wild animal. So maybe that's why it's difficult to assess, right? Because you need to know about the topic, but at the same time, you need to be like open mind with your students' answers. Okay, so tell me, Francisco, so far so good, no problems. We have closed test. Remember, filling gaps with no help. You will be evaluating comprehension, grammar, and lexis. Gap fill, only grammar and lexis, and in this case, you can have options: jumble sentence, cohesion, and grammatical knowledge, sentence transformation, grammatical and structures. To have one sentence and to rewrite that sentence. Proofreading, like checking errors in I don't know, in a text, in a spoken language. Multiple choice questions, A, B, C, and D. Choose the one. You can evaluate many aspects such as grammar, lexis, and it's easy to mark. True, false, and don't know questions. It's also easy to mark, and you will be evaluating comprehension mostly. And information transfer, it is going to be, it is good, a little bit difficult to test, to evaluate, but you can evaluate comprehension and written or spoken text. So no problems with this, Francisco. Type to me, please. I need to know if you don't have any question. Remember to start making your notes, Francisco, because you might be asked of one of these in the test. Okay. Um, Let me see if I have an image. Okay, but it's basically this: a closed test. Okay, you have gaps. Okay, you have gaps. You have a text and you have gaps. Okay, let's have an example. Okay, maybe I can type it on here. Mm, okay, I'm typing. Okay, Francisco. So wait a minute. Now I know what you feel. Okay, don't worry. I am typing. Okay, so I have some example of a sentence. We have two spaces, Francisco, and we have one that is done. And Spanish are Indo-European languages. Okay, so you have two spaces. I don't know if you know about the story of languages, Francisco. If you do, tell me what other apart from Spanish could be considered as an Indo-European language. Do you know that or no? You have no idea, or more or less. Okay, Portuguese. Do you have another one? And French. Okay, Portuguese and French. Italian is also Indo-European. Okay, so Italian, Portuguese, French, and Spanish are the most common one in Indo-European languages. Okay, so That is basically the closed test. Okay, that sometimes, okay, yes, Portuguese and French are European. Imagine that in your answer sheet you have Portuguese and French only, but the student writes Italian. So is he incorrect or correct? Even though in your answer sheet you don't have Italian. He is correct. Okay, so that's the main point of closed test, and that's why it's difficult to answer it, because you have the space and you have the sentence, basically the context, but maybe these gaps that are filled, you can have many answers. Obviously, you cannot say Germany, for example. Okay, that is incorrect. Totally incorrect. But if you have more than those options, that's a closed test. Okay, and a gap fill test is like completing a song, for example. Words, you have the verbs like at the beginning, and then they just need to transfer the verbs at the in the front to the song, but you are giving them options, and in closed tests you are not giving them options. I don't know if this is clear, Francisco, or do you want me to give you an example of a gap fill? Tell me. I'm here to help. Is this crystal here clear with this example between closed test and gap fill? Okay, thank you very much, Francisco. So it's basically that. One is with options, the other one is not with options. Okay, that's why in the second one you only check grammar and lexis, no comprehension, because you need to gap with any word from the ones given. Mm-hmm. Very good. Now let's continue with the next one. We have other kind of assessment activities. And let's start with matching. Okay, what is matching? Well, they can test lexis, other features of language or comprehension of written and spoken text, easy to construct and to mark. Okay, matching is like to join sentences, to join vocabulary, to join words with pictures, pictures with pictures, words with words, sentences with pictures, etc. Basically, is to join. Okay, so in this case, this is a good one. Also, is very similar to the last one, because you can text lexis, but also other features for comprehension. Okay, sequencing, text or pictures. Like sequencing means to put the things in order. Okay, they can give, for example, in a recipe, for example, you can have the steps for, I don't know, for cooking hotcakes, for example. For cooking hotcakes, you have first, then after that, etc. Okay, so in this case with sequencing, you can test comprehension of written or spoken text, good for testing understanding and production of narrative, easy to mark. It is very easy, and you can test the comprehension, basically, and the understanding. And as is here is for narrative stuff. Okay, so that means for fairy tales, short stories, etc. Dictation. Okay, what can dictation test? It can test a wide range of language, for example, lexis, grammar, listening, writing, a direct test of a complex combination of knowledge and skills, but difficult to mark. Yes, okay, so in dictation, open your book, please, Francisco, and write this sentence. The baby is playing with the ball. And then the students, in your case, Francisco, you need to write the sentence. The baby is playing with the ball. I'm just giving an example. Francisco, don't write it. Okay, so dictation is good because you are checking many things. Lexis, because they say the baby. How do I write baby? Bibi or Babe. Okay, so you're checking lexis. Grammar, because they need to have is playing. Okay, I remember that with y, that nothing happens if we have a consonant or a vowel. Listening, because they need to listen to you, and writing, because they are going to improve when they are listening to you. So dictation is a good idea, and I recommend you to use it, Francisco, in your classes, especially for children. Obviously, with very basic words. I do it with secondary school, and it helps a lot, especially before exams. Okay, summary writing, test reading, writing, and wide range of language knowledge. A realistic task but difficult to mark. Okay, summary writing, like is to have like to analyze something and write about it. Okay, so they have a writing, sorry, they have a reading and then they write about that reading. Okay, let's see an article about bullying. So they need to get to the main idea and write something related to it. It is very nice. It helps, especially for higher levels, but it's very difficult to mark because you need to check comprehension, you need to check mistakes, if they didn't cheat, if they didn't copy, etc. Okay? Sorry. Guided writing in response to input text or a set of instructions. Okay? You know what is a guided writing, right? So, for example, guided writing is when we have a story. Okay, this story will start like this. Two little boys were walking in the park when suddenly, and then you give the piece of paper to another student, and he continues writing. When suddenly a monster in front of a house. The house was, and then they give it to another person and it says the house was like this and this and so on, and that's a guided writing. Or also a guided writing is like to make them to write a composition and you're just checking, you're just checking that they are doing well, what things, what aspects are you going to be evaluating, etc. Okay, so this is a test realistic written communication directed and controlled by the input text and instructions, and therefore quite easy to mark. Okay, it is easy to mark because you know what, because it's guided. Because you know what you want to have, you know what you want to see in the results. Okay, but anyway, sometimes can be a little bit difficult too. Interview. Test skills of spoken interaction can provide direct assessment of learners' activity to take part in unplanned dialogue, testing listening, turn taking, and other interactive skills, as well as speaking in long terms with someone speaks in conversation that is called a turn. So we all know what an interview is, right? So we all know that we can practice pronunciation, speaking, writing, because if you're writing the answers and everything. Okay? And finally, information gap activity. A student gets missing information from a partner to complete a task. For example, test skills of spoken interaction creates a real need for communication, may produce quite controlled language, and so be easy to mark, or be more open-ended in therefore subjective in its marking. What is this, Francisco? Have you ever played Find Someone Who, for example? Find Someone Who? Have you ever played this game? Okay, so yes, so as you know, as you said, you know what it is about. So you have like, for example, a gap, a space, and you have a sentence. For example, space, and you have to write the name of the person. And it says listen to music on Saturday. Then the second one is go swimming every year or every month. And then the students have to go stand up and start asking, hey, uh, when do you listen to music? And if they say, I listen to music every weekend, they can write the name of the person. And that's how they are going to fill in information. So this is a good example of information gap activity. Okay, so I will make a summary of all this. Matching, remember that it says mostly lexis, but match many things. It's basically to join sentences, pictures, etc. Sequencing, well, like it's to put in order, in order to say a test or a narrative stuff, etc. Dictation, well, that it's to say something and make students write, and this is good because it evaluates many things such as lexis, grammar, listening, etc. Summary writing is basically to get information from a test and analyze it. Okay, and it evaluates mostly reading comprehension and writing. Okay, guiding writing, it's to help the students to make a composition within a controlled or instructions. Okay, interview, well, is having an interaction, especially in the speaking part, and they take turns, they ask, they respond, and so on. And finally, information and gap activity, it's create um some sentences or something and get information from the students, from themselves. Okay, so tell me, Francisco, do you have a question about this, about all of these ones and these ones? These are the last ones. Now we have a lot to study, right? Okay, very nice, Francisco. We will see in the extra activities. Okay, now assessment analysis. Okay, so as you know, assessment can be easy, sometimes it can be very difficult. For example, every assessment activity has advantages and disadvantages. For this reason, a good formal test includes a variety of assessment activities. So that's why tests are the most recommendable activities, right? Because if you make a test with different activities, with different percentages, and everything, then you will have a nice evaluation. I think so. Mhm. But for example, activities such as multiple choice with test single items are easy to mark, right? B, C, A, B, B, C, A, D, and so on. But the information sorry, and give us clear information about a specific area of the learner's language knowledge. However, they do not tell us anything about the learner's activities to produce longer samples of languages. Okay, so maybe they did the any mini mini moo, okay, or they just remember that from the class and they just mark it. But it is not testing if they can really produce such sentences by themselves. Okay, productive skills can be assessed within extent activities, for example summary writing, interviews, etc., although these are less practical to mark. So as you can see, we have both sides. For one side, making a test is easy because you just mark. It's very very easy. Okay, but you don't assess if they can produce. And in productive skills, you can assess with extra activities, which you will realize if they can produce, but it's more difficult to mark. It's more difficult to evaluate. So that's it. That's the thing for us that we are teachers. So, so far so good, Francisco. Tell me questions or problems, doubts, a comment, something about this? No, now? Okay, maybe later. Now, we're going to do this extra activity, Francisco, okay? I hope you are prepared. Okay, here it says, read the following statements and decide whether they are true or false. Correct the false statements. Okay, so I'm going to be evaluating your comprehension, Francisco. Okay, so you just need to mark T or F. But if it is F, try to correct it. For example, number one, in closed tests, we choose the words to blank out. Okay, I repeat. In closed tests, we choose the words to blank out. Tell me, Francisco, this is true, false? We, when we say we, means like we as teachers. It is false, right? Why, Francisco? Exactly. So we don't have, they don't need to choose. They don't have options. We we maybe, but they don't have options. So they have to choose or to check with their own understanding, with their own knowledge, right? That's right. Okay, so correct, Francisco. Now you're going to continue with the next ones, you alone. Okay, I'm going to give you, this is a little bit more challenging. So I'm going to give you 15 minutes maximum. Okay, Francisco, only 15 minutes maximum, 5 minutes more. If you finish earlier, remember you can let me know. Okay, are you ready, Francisco? Go ahead, 15 minutes. Start now. Okay, hello, almost over. You have less than 10 seconds. Did you finish the exercise or not? Okay, so time's over. But I can wait. Just tell me. Which one did you stop? In which one, Francisco? Okay, I can wait. I can wait, Francisco. Okay. Summary writing is an objective assessment activity. You told me that you didn't see the video from objective and subjective, right? No, right? So objective is mainly when we have an evaluation which is concrete, like a test, like you will have a grade. And subjective is the opposite, is when we don't have a grade, when we don't have help, when we just think and we say, that's correct, but we don't give like an exact explanation of why something is correct. Okay, so summary writing is an objective assessment activity. It's asking you if you need to have like a objective, like something to evaluate, or it can be subjective, like in the consideration of the teacher, of the students themselves. That's mainly the difference. But don't worry, we're gonna check them a little bit. Okay, so I can see your answers, Francisco. For you, number 2 is true. Number 3 is true. Number 4, it's false. We can use information transfer tasks to test listening skills. I think yes, Francisco, because it's not only in readings. You can listen and transfer what you're listening to a chart or to a diagram. So I think the number 4, it's true. Number 5, it's false. Summary writing is a subjective activity. Probably yes, probably no. I don't know. I have my doubts. Number 6 is true. Number 7 is true. Number 8 is true. I'm just checking the false ones, okay? Because we're gonna see the answers. Number 9, it's false. Very good. Interviews are challenging because learning can prepare all their answers. No, right? They cannot prepare all their answers. That's why it's challenging. And finally, number 10 is true for you. Okay, so these are your answers. They look very nice to me, although I don't agree with some of them, but they are cool. Okay, so here we go with the answer key. Okay, number 1, as we saw, it is false. Okay, number 2, it is true. Excellent, Francisco. Okay, so a true or false is more challenging by adding a third option that is we don't know, right? Okay, very good. Number 3, it is true. Number 4, you said that is false. But as I was telling you, I think it can be true because you can listen and transfer what you're listening to a chart or to something. Okay, number 5, correct, Francisco. It's not an objective, it's a subjective assessment because summary, as we were talking, that summary is not concrete, it's what you understand. Okay, and your understanding might be different from mine. So I cannot be objective, not all the time, because we don't have like a specific format. Number 6 is true, and you wrote true. Number 7, true. Excellent, Francisco. Number 8, guess what? Number 8 is false. Sentence transformation is a real life assessment activity. Not exactly, it's more like an authentic assessment activity. What is the difference, Francisco? Like basically, in sentence transformation, you don't really do that in real life. Okay, so sentence transformation is just more for grammatical stuff. And that's why it is called unauthentic, inauthentic, sorry. Because in this case, the word that you have, we don't do that in real life, right? We're not thinking, oh, I can say this in the other way around. No, not really. So it's just for checking grammar. Number 9, it is false, as you said. They cannot prepare all the answers. And number 10, it is true. Very good, Francisco. So you got basically all of them right, or mostly. You just got like 2 mistakes, maybe, but that's excellent. That's excellent. You are at the 100 one more time. You have a question in the number 2? No, I got it. You got 2 wrong answers, right? Yeah, I got it. Sorry, Francisco. I got it. Okay, so tell me a question of this, Francisco. Do you have a question, a problem, a doubt, a comment? Crystal clear. Okay, now, Francisco, let's go with your sample test. I'm sorry, I know that maybe you didn't want to do this. Okay, so remember that the previous one is just an extra exercise. This is the real test. Okay, for questions from 1 to 7, match the assessment activities with the teacher's comments listened from A to H. Remember that listen teacher's comments are like kind of the evaluation, the characteristic of this assessment activity. If it is easy, if it is difficult, if we evaluate listening, if we evaluate comprehension, etc. Okay, there is one extra option which you don't need to use. So as you can see, you have seven assessment activities, and you have 8 comments. So one of these comment is not needed or doesn't match with one of the assessment activities. Okay, Francisco, so you have, for example, close, proofreading, sequence, interview, information gap, etc. Okay, so in this time, Francisco, I need to be more exigent, and you only have 10 minutes to do it. Are you ready for this activity? Remember, you can ask me anytime, okay? You don't have to wait or to feel uncomfortable to ask me. Ask me, ask me. Okay, are you ready, Francisco? Okay, so 10 minutes, go ahead. Remember to find the keywords, what we have been practicing today. Okay, Francisco, I see your answers. How was it? Difficult? Yes, right. It's not the same to be behind the screen that really into the exercise. Okay, so let's check. For you, letter A is number two, proofreading. Okay, I agree with you. In the number seven, you're not sure. Don't worry. We're gonna check it. Number five for you, it's B. Summary writing, it really makes the student focus on what the most important information in the text. Okay, I agree with you. Number and the number oh, that's the extra one. Okay, good. Number one for you, so C is the extra one. We didn't need it. Letter D is number one. I give the students the first paragraph without any missing words so that they understand the context and then they take very seven words in the list of the text. So for you, number letter D, it's number one. Close. I'm not sure because it says I give the students the first paragraph without any missing word so that they understand the contents and then I take seven words. I guess correct. Yeah, I agree with you too. Number six is F. It focuses on assessing listening, grammar, vocabulary, many aspects. And for you, this is number six. Interview. Could be. I agree with you. The next one, number four, for you, it's letter. Sorry. Number three is letter G. It's clear to mark, but if the students get one item in the wrong order, it can make all the other items wrong too. Obviously, it is the you have it for there. Number three, sequencing. Okay, and finally, when partner exchange information, you can assess the speaking skills of both students. So for you, this is number seven, information gap. Not exactly, Francisco. I think for me, information gap is more letter C. With just two or three options, students could guess which option is correct. So I always ask them to explain their answers. So remember that in information gap, you have options. Okay, but anyway, don't worry, we're gonna check the answers. Here we go. Ah, you're right. Excellent. Excellent, Francisco. I am wrong. Number letter A it's two, letter B it's five, letter C is D, letter E it's one. No, sorry. Oh yeah, letter D is one, letter E is six, letter F is four, letter G is three, and letter H is seven. Perfect, Mark. One more time, Francisco, congratulations. I got confusion in letter H, but you were correct. Okay, because yes, you have options, but you don't have here the example of the exercise. But in here, yes, because they need to change information, you can assess the speaking skill of both students. Uh-huh. So letter H is number seven, which is information gap, because I got confused with the gap fill, and it is information gap. It is for getting information between the two students. Okay, very good, Francisco. Excellent. You did it very well. I'm very proud of you. So tell me, questions or problems about this topic, Francisco? I don't think so because you showed me that you are a master at this. But anyway, tell me if you have a question, if you have a doubt. Yes, I got confusing with information gap and gap filling. I didn't read correctly. No, now. Okay, so this is the end for planning, Francisco. Okay, so we have already checked the elements of planning. We have already checked the aims, and now we check the procedures. What are the procedures? Well, the activities, and how you can assess them. Okay, so I hope everything is clear. And right now we're going to start with the next topic that is called resources. Are you tired, Francisco? I'm going to try to explain it very, very quickly so that we can finish earlier. I know it's a bit much information, but it's very useful. Okay, so today I just to remind you we're in module 2, but now we are in part 2. Lesson planning and use of resources for language teaching. So today we're going to be starting talking about resources. Okay, so the name of the topic is consulting reference resources to help in lesson preparation. Right, so first we need to define what is a referent resource. These are all the sources of information about language and about teaching that we can refer to for help in lesson preparation. They include, for example, reference materials, dictionaries, grammar books, books, and articles. Sorry, supplementary materials in example phonemic chart, list of irregular verbs, websites on the internet, etc. And even reference talking with people, the head of departments or colleagues, etc. Okay, so reference basically, Francisco, are all the resources, all the things that you can get information, you can get activities, you can get supplementary materials in order to make your class a good class. Okay, for example, the course book is a resource. Okay, but it's not only the book, right? We can also have videos, which is related to websites. We can have materials like dictionaries. Mhm. Or we can have people like maybe a help from the headmaster or for the colleagues. Uh-huh. So there is a lot of information to teachers. So it's important to develop the ability to compare reference resources and decide on their quality and usefulness. So this is our job, Francisco. As you know now with the internet, with all the media, we have access to different a very big range of resources, but our job, Francisco, is to know or to select the resources that are really good for our classes. Okay, we need to focus or we need to decide between the quality and the usefulness. Okay, but now let's go with every single resource because those might come in the real test. Okay, so make your notes, please, Francisco, if you have the chance. So resources for checking the form and use of grammatical resources. So basically for this, we mostly have grammar books. Okay, what are grammar books? Well, they help me to describe and explain grammar. Practice exercises. Most of them are based on electronic collections. Okay, so a grammar book, it's a book like this one that we have here that is called Oxford English Grammar, in which you will have all the explanation of time tenses, the parts of the speech, such as determiners, such as nouns, pronouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs. Okay, and you have all the grammar here, all the functions, all the forms. And a good thing is that you have practice in most of these books, and you have electronic collection. That means that there is collections for each book. So remember, Francisco, grammar books. Okay, in this case now we have more books or we have more resources. Resources for checking the spelling, pronunciation, and use of lexical items. These are focusing on aspects of the language. Remember that all these are called aspects of the language. Okay, so in this case we have especially dictionaries. For example, advanced learners dictionaries. Okay, what is this? Well, they include examples of sentences and information about the form and the use of words. As they are for advanced students, you have many examples. You have other varieties of a word. You have synonyms because you are supposed to be an advanced student. Okay, we can also have bilingual dictionaries. What is this? The word and its meaning are in different language. They usually give very little information about how to use a word. So for example, in a bilingual dictionary, they are the most common ones, especially in elementary schools, in elementary and in secondary schools. Okay, we have the dictionaries, we have the word in English and then the translation in Spanish, or the other way around, the word in Spanish and the translation in English. One disadvantage of these bilingual dictionaries, Francisco, is that they don't give much information about the word. You know that many words can be used in different contexts. So in this case, we call them, do you remember, homonyms? And in this case, that's the problem because they see the word bank, for example, and that's it. And they feel that it's just for, they say banco and that's it, but there is another bank, remember, that is kind of the h of a river. Okay, and it doesn't appear in a bilingual dictionary because most of these words don't exist in our language. That's why it says that it's useful, but it doesn't give much information. Okay, but at the same time, Francisco, we have monolingual dictionaries, okay, which are the words and its meaning are in the same language. This can help teachers to find the most suitable ways of defining words and giving examples of their use, as they mostly include information such as collocations, synonyms, antonyms, etc. So monolingual dictionaries are more useful from, I don't know, high school, university, master degrees, because as you have only one language and the description of the language, you have more space or you have more information about the word. You can even have synonyms, antonyms about that word, so you know more than a bilingual dictionary, because bilingual dictionaries are just the translation, and monolingual dictionaries we focus more than that. Okay, and we have some other special dictionaries, for example, dictionaries of collocation, of idioms, phrasal verbs, pronouncing dictionaries, dictionaries of culture, etc. So we have some examples here of dictionaries. We have, for example, this dictionary that is for phrasal verbs, or this dictionary that is for idioms, and so on. Okay, Francisco. So remember, for I don't know, for improving your spelling, pronunciation, and lexical, we normally use dictionaries. Okay. So far, so good, Francisco. Problems, questions, comments about grammar books, about dictionaries? No, not really. All right, very good. Let's continue then. Okay, resources for developing your own understanding of language. And this is for us, Francisco, for us, like we are teachers. Books for teachers aim to increase our language awareness, our understanding of how language works, and our awareness of how to teach it. Okay, so now, in comparison to the students' resources, for us, we can also have books for us, for like teachers. Okay, we have grammar books, but now this grammar, how you will be able to transfer this knowledge to the students. So it's not only practice grammar, it's also to analyze the grammar and know how to teach it, how to share that knowledge. Okay, so for example, here we have helping children succeed, sorry. So in this case, you imagine that you are a primary school. Okay, so you will have a book which will help you, Francisco, to improve to improve children learning, maybe about languages, maybe not about languages, but they exist. Okay, so books for teachers, remember. The next one, resources for anticipating learners' difficulties. Okay, so as you know, in lesson planning, we have some sorry, we have one aspect that is called uh I forgot the name, but it's related to the problems of the students. I had to have like a background to have some anticipated problems. Okay, so in this case, do you remember the word exactly? I just forgot it. But it's possible problems. Okay, thank you, Francisco. So in this case, you can have this kind of books in order to anticipate problems, and most of these problems, Francisco, are related to their mother language with the new language. So, okay, so in this case, what you need to give them is a book, especially for those students that always want to translate, that they always need a translation. You can teach them like there are no always translation for words. Okay, so these are called books or articles about specific differences between the learners L1 and English. Okay, so here we have reference materials about learners' errors can help us anticipate particular language problems that our learners might have. Many difficulties with vocabulary or grammar are the result of interference for L1. Okay, so these are some books that can help us as teachers to check the errors, and from those errors make the, I don't know, the change, right? To teach them. Now, for example, I am agree. Many teachers and students say I am agree. Okay, but this is incorrect. Even though in Spanish is estoy de acuerdo, in English it has to be I agree only. I agree. Okay, so this is a very common problem for teachers and students. And maybe with these kind of books like this one, identifies plosives in L2 English. Okay, so now you can focus more in the L2 language instead of the L1. Yes, Francisco? Okay, now let's continue. We are missing just two. Resources for teaching lesson and new classroom activities. This is good, especially if you think, Francisco, that your methodology is not that good, or that maybe you can change the activities. So these are called supplementary materials. What are these materials? Well, you can use them in addition to or instead of your course book. This is very important. So maybe you have a course book which is very good, but one activity you don't like it that much because I don't know, maybe it doesn't give like it doesn't have like a good procedure in order for your students to learn. So then you go through Google, you find an exercise and you say, I will use this one instead of this one. Or you can use both. You use the one of the course book and then you use the one that you investigated and you research. Okay, so since websites until ideas and activities for teachers on different teaching topics. Okay, so the websites now have many supplementary materials, and I hope you use them, Francisco. Those are good. And finally, how to use the material in your course book. Okay, you know that a course book have different materials. Okay, for example, we normally have teacher's book. I have my teacher's books in all of the classes because teachers books helps me to because I can see suggestions about how to use the material in the course book, such as procedures, extra resources, supplementary worksheets, and even tests. Sometimes in my teacher's books I have tests, so I don't have to create them. I just go Google them, I evaluate them, and they are, if they are good to use or to be used, I just give them to the students. Okay, so this is for the teacher's books for helping material in your course book. Okay, Francisco? And that's all. That's basically all about references. What you must remember about references are this stuff. You have some grammar books to help you in grammar or your students. We can also have books or dictionaries in this case that can help us to practice our spelling, pronunciation, and lexis. Okay, we have advanced dictionaries, bilingual, monolingual, and special dictionaries. But at the same time, we can have books for teachers for us in order to be helped and to provide, I don't know, suggestions for teaching, right? We can also have some special material to identify a student's error and how to deal with those errors, especially from L1 to L2 interference, so that we can help our students before or after a topic. Okay? And fun, the next one is supplementary material, all the internet stuff, all the worksheets, extra exercises are in supplementary material. And finally, the course book, which is basically the teacher's book. Okay, sometimes we have a special book for us as teachers so that we can follow the instructions, the suggestions, the test of a course. Okay, questions or problems, Francisco, about this? Comments, questions, doubts? Complete explanation. Okay, so that means that you don't have any problems. So I have a complete explanation. Okay, very good, Francisco. So tell me, Francisco, which of these materials do you normally use by yourself or with your students? Do you normally use grammar? Do you normally use dictionaries? Tell me, do you ask your students to bring dictionaries? What kind of dictionaries do you ask them to use? How do you use books for you as a teacher? Books like to solve problems, supplementary materials, worksheets, your teacher's book, do you have? Okay, advanced dictionaries, bilingual dictionaries, books for teachers, that's for you, right? Worksheets, teacher's book. Okay, excellent, Francisco. Now let's go with your extra practice. And this is the last exercise for today so that we can rest. Okay, so the extra practice. Look at the resources from 1 to 7 below. Working with the resources themselves or just the titles. Decide which purpose from A to G they are suitable for. Okay, so for example, we have this number one, yourdictionary.com is a free online resource for definition, sentence, examples, synonyms, and more. Okay, so we have the title and then we have the web page or the resource. So in this case, with this resource, Francisco, we can have or we can improve in three aspects, or they can help us in three aspects. B, checking the specification of specific items. Why? Because they are dictionaries. And remember that dictionaries help you in those things. Developing your own understanding of the language. It can also help us because it says here sentence examples. Okay, so you can analyze and get the idea. And also DE, helping the students to become more independent learners. Okay, because as you are giving them the resource, maybe they can just without asking you. They won't say, teacher, what does this mean? Teacher, what is this? What is the synonym of this? So they can search in this and they can be more like work by themselves. Okay, so you're going to do the same, Francisco, from 2 to 7. You are going to decide which of these can be here. Maybe you can have one, two, or three of them. Okay, so are you ready to start, Francisco? This is the last activity of today. Remember, you have 10 minutes to do it. If you finish earlier, let me know, please. Go ahead and good luck. Okay, Francisco, I see your answers. Okay, so because of time situation, we're just going to check and compare the answers. Okay, so for number two is G and F. Very good, Francisco. Okay, so remember that we have primary classroom activities, so you can improve your new approaches in the teaching, but at the same time, you can also find practical teaching. Okay, very good. Number three, it's AC. You wrote E, but in this case, it's just AC. Okay, maybe you are right. Let's analyze it. A language, remember, these are Cambridge answers. A language awareness workbook for Roy Brian Thompson, so it is a workbook. So in this case, maybe that's why it cannot be F. Sorry, E. Helping the students to become more independent learners. I'm not sure. Most of the times we have the idea that a workbook is for homework, that we ask the students to do it by themselves, but indeed no. In the United States and many parts of the country, a workbook, as it says workbook, has to be done in the classroom, and we as teachers, we need to, it's like the course book, we need to be there behind the student, so maybe that's why. Okay, in Mexico, yes, this can apply, but not in other countries. Number four, it's A and F. You wrote B also, teaching tenses, ideas for presenting and practicing tenses in English. Okay, so you wrote E. Sorry, B also, checking the spelling, but not exactly because it says tenses. Maybe lexical items, but I don't think pronunciation because it's more focused on grammar. But that's okay, Francisco. Number five, it's only D. You wrote E and F, but indeed it's only D. Swan and Bernard, it is a guide to interference. So this is anticipating students' difficulties. We saw it, and that's it. No more than that, Francisco. It's just for that. The next one, it's the sixth is number letter E. Sorry, because it is focused for independent students. Dictionary skills by Tim Bowen. Worksheets last aiming or timing learners in dictionary use and developing their vocabulary. I'm not sure about this answer. I agree with you that we can also have a spelling pronunciation because it's a dictionary. No matter if it is an online dictionary, it has to be like that. So I agree with you, Francisco. Cambridge is wrong. I just kidding, but I agree more with you, Francisco. Maybe developing your own understanding of the language can be possible, if you think of analysis, but it's more, I agree more with you with B and C. Sorry, B and E, but not C that much. And finally, letter seven, number seven is letter F, and you wrote A at the same time. Grammar practice activities, it is a grammar book. So it's more with approaches to teaching lessons of new classroom activities because it says grammar practice activities. Mhm. Maybe also A. I agree with you more with A, but in this case, as it is more for teachers, grammar practice activities, I think it's more for teachers. That's why we don't have to really check grammar and the structure. I don't know, but you are right. I think in number six and number seven, I agree with you, Francisco. I don't agree that much with Cambridge, but I do agree with you. Okay, so remember, this is just an extra practice. It is very difficult to assess because we have different conceptions about life, about the students. For example, workbook, how we think that a workbook is for home, but indeed is in the classroom in reality. So things like that. Okay, Francisco, questions or problems about this topic, comments? Next class, that is on Friday, you're going to be doing the sample test. Okay? You're going to be doing the sample test, and I want to ask you, have you done the sample test for module one? Not yet, okay? Try to do it. I am deciding if I'm going to be uploading the answer sheet with the answers, or we're going to analyze it here on Friday. Let me think about it. Let me think because of time situation. The thing here is timing. But anyway, I will try to figure it out, and anyway, we'll be in touch. Okay, Francisco. So thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being in the class, and see you next. See you this Friday. Okay. I was going to say next week. I want to go. I'm looking forward to the weekend. Okay. See you on Friday. Thanks, Francisco. Bye bye. Sweet dreams.